Hello, everyone. So today we will talk about the New Brunswick immigration program, specifically the New Brunswick Skilled Worker stream. I also want to talk about the New Brunswick Express entry, but what I saw is that as of now, they haven't even created the application guides, because what is written on the website is not the most important, because they are going to look into the application guide and decide the criteria. So we have to wait for that before I come up with that video. But today we will cover the New Brunswick Skilled Worker stream in detail. So they have these kind of three pathways, the work experience pathway, the graduate pathway, and the priority occupation pathway. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Sandhu. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant based out of Ontario, Canada. Created hundreds of videos now on PR pathways and tips and tricks and many things in between, and also analysis. So this video is also, one of those videos which is only for informational purposes, right? Should not be construed as legal advice. And if you want one, you can always book an appointment. Very, very affordable option for you to, get the right information in order to make the informed choice. So let's dive right into this specific program, right? So let's see what they have written, right? So I will use the website itself so that we have the latest information, and I can share part of it to give you the things which will be most important, right? So first thing is that what happened is they opened up these streams and everybody tried to start to create their expression of interest. So this is an expression of interest stream, which means that first you create an expression of interest, which means think of it like creating a profile. And when you create the profile, you are part of the pool with all other people who have created the profile. And then if they select you, you will get the invitation, and then you submit your application within 45 days. That is with New Brunswick PNP. Whenever they process your application, if everything goes well, you will get the nomination certificate. And then you will use the nomination certificate to apply for PR under the non-express entry stream. So pretty much that's what it typically entails. So what has happened is, so when it opened up, so a lot of people kind of try to create the profile, and that's why they put up a notice now that they were having performance issues. The website wasn't working. There's a lot of people trying to create the profile. So they're saying, you are going to remain in pool for 365 days, so don't need to rush. So that's how they were basically that's how they're trying to kind of solve the technical issue. So now let's look into what this stream is about, right? First of all, on the very first thing you will see is that there are some occupations which are not being considered, right? So if you have job offer in these occupations, I mean, this stream is not for you, right? So we have accounting technicians and bookkeepers, administrative assistants, shippers, receivers, pretty much all of them in the restaurant sector. Then also other customer service representative job, knock, food and beverage servers, kitchen helpers. And if you notice that, so this stream is open for all tier 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So which means that this is a really good from that perspective. But these are definitely not in favor right now. So then if you have the experience in that, or you are considering something related to this as a job offer, right? So these job offers, it will not work for you, okay? So now also let's take a quick look into what is the main criteria. So right, if you see here for the work experience, so when they're talking about work experience, they're talking about work experience with an eligible employer in New Brunswick, right? So you need to have worked in a full-time non-seasonal. So I'm assuming that means like kind of a permanent full-time job for an eligible New Brunswick employer. Why they use the word eligible? Because there is a criteria for most PNPs. There are some criteria for the employer eligibility. They cannot be like for this case, I think it cannot be less than 2 years old employer, and things like that. And we'll quickly have go into that as well. And you have lived in the province for the past 6 months. And then there is a New Brunswick graduate. So this is for people who have completed a postgraduate eligible program at New Brunswick designated institution, and now have a full-time non-seasonal job or job offer from an eligible New Brunswick employer. And the last one is a priority occupation. So they have also a list of priority occupation in, I believe it's health and construction, and basically all the and education, all the usual suspects, right? So there's nothing unexpected. But the important part is that this job offer should be from an eligible New Brunswick employer as a result of direct recruitment mission. So I think New Brunswick also conducts many recruitment missions, so the job offer has to be through that. It cannot be like any other employer. And the knock for the position must be one of the specified priority occupations, knock codes, and you must have at least 1 year of experience related to the position. So that's typically what it is. So now let's look into the guide, right? So let's look at the first one. So this one, okay? And let me open the guide for you and quickly run through this and see what is the most important part in this specific thing, right? So now if you just look at the overview, right? So you see here that who are eligible, right? So you must have been living and working for last 6 months, right? With the eligible employer in New Brunswick, and you should meet the education level. You should have an education level that meets the requirements of the position according to the law. So now this is a change, right? So they are not saying that you need to have a bachelor's or you need to have a diploma or you need to have a grade 12. They're saying whatever your job offer is or the job you're working in, right, which you're using, the education requirement should be whatever is required for that kind of occupation. So that's how, and that could complicate matters as well, because there's some occupations where they say, it's usually required, for some it's required. So where it's definitely required, I think you need to have that education in order to be considered. Where it's usually required, I think there could be still, how they perceive it, that's anybody's guess. So now another thing is you need to have CLB4, which is pretty low score in English or French in all abilities, and you need intent and have ability to live and work in New Brunswick permanently. And a lot of people just ignore that. They say, oh, you know what, that should be fine. No, it will not be fine. Just make sure you under this part very carefully, and you are at least 19 years old. But they don't have an upper limit, so which is a good thing. And I don't even see the points. Earlier, there used to be points, I think 60 points out of 100. So I don't see the points, or there are points which are being calculated internally, but this is not kind of made public or something. So I do not know how do they actually would select that, right? Because at the end of the day, they don't have so many nominations they can select everyone, right? So at the end of the day, they have to choose, right? So now they're saying do not apply if you're full-time secondary, post-secondary education, enroll in post-secondary education in Canada. Like for example, if you're studying right now, do not apply. And if you have an immigration application in process, there's a misrepresentation, or you are living illegally in your country of residence, right? So this could be Canada or outside Canada as well, and you have been refused or ordered to leave Canada or any other country, are working in Canada without authorization, and have a active or failed refugee claim or for humanitarian and compassionate consideration in Canada. Okay. Excuse me. So this is like a quick kind of a flow chart, right? So they said that you would be living and working. Of course, you will get a job offer, and then you submit the expression of interest. Think of it as like a profile through their portal, and then you'll wait for the invitation, and then you submit an nomination application if you're invited, right? And then there will be processing, and then you receive a decision. And let's say if you are nominated, then you will submit an application to IRCC for permanent residence, receive a decision from IRCC, and if approved, report your landing to Immigration New Brunswick within 30 days. Okay. So now let's look into some of the eligibility requirements. So first thing is that it has to be full-time non-seasonal employment. That's number one. And you must have been working for the same employer for at least 6 months consecutively before applying, right? Another thing which is very important is that your supporting documents must show the duties and responsibilities of your New Brunswick employment match with the description of the NOC code, right? And they say very categorically that they will assess based on the duties, skills, aptitude, work settings in the Canadian labor market, and NOC helps them determine whether the employer needs are genuine, whether they will be able to perform the duties, right? So looking at the NOC and NOC duties and employment requirements is very critical for this particular thing, right? And your employer will provide you a job offer, a contract, right? Or a reference letter from your employer, and the employer will also be filling up this form, right? NB004 employment information form, right? So each PNP, whether it's Ontario, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, any, they generally have their, specific employer form, right? Because these are all kind of employer support PNPs, right? And your wage level should be, you should look at the job bank and see what is the wage structure. It should be above the low wage. That's my understanding. And then if it is a regulated occupation, you can only work after you have the appropriate license, and right. And if it is the transportation sector, so you must already have and included your New Brunswick Class 1 license in your application, right? And the education requirements, they have specifically mentioned that you must meet the requirement of the position in New Brunswick. The NOC system will be used to assess whether you have the required level of education. And if it's outside Canada, you have to get the education credential assessment from one of those kind of 8 designated organizations, depending upon, there are some general ones like West Canada, ICAS, ICES, and things like that. And you only require CLB4. So CLB4, they're mentioned pretty low scores, right? And then you should also be working in New Brunswick for the last, you also should be living in New Brunswick with a valid temporary residence status for last 6 months, right? So, and they have said at least meet 3 of the following criteria. You need to have a rental or lease agreement, a driver's license, a vehicle registration, insurance policy, blah, blah, blah. So just look into that. And you have intention to reside, and the economic, establishment in New Brunswick is critical, and your age must be above 19, right? So obviously you have to establish that you want to live permanently in New Brunswick after getting your PR. So now there are some employer requirements as well. So employer must have a valid registration to hire foreign workers, right? And a physical structure is required. So mailing address, a clear signage for the organization at the location of operation, actively operating for the last 24 months, right? And basically actively engaged and in good standing with and not violating any of those labor laws and other laws, right? And if it's a transport sector, for example, they want that, that your employer must have been registered with the government of New Brunswick for at least 12 consecutive months before you can apply, right? And it should be a genuine employer-employee relationship and things like that. Okay, so now we know that if you create an expression of trust and if you're invited, you will have 45 days to submit the application and you pay the processing fee. So what is the processing fee? So we can look into that as well. So it was $250, but doing that basically pushed me to the page number 3. So I need to go back. So where were we? So yeah, exactly. I think that's where were we. So yeah, 45 days. And then if you're nominated, then you will submit the PR through the non-express entry. And right now, I think the processing time for that is 21 months. And they have the list of required documents, and you can always look into that. So birth certificate, right? Color pictures, passport, any travel documents, marital status, right? So they have like a huge list of these documents which needs to be provided. You cannot ignore that, right? So I will put that in the description, and I also put the description if you need to book a consultation as well, right? So you can always go there and check it out, right? So this is the first one, right? So now let's look into the other one. So this is for people who have graduated from New Brunswick, right? So this is for people, let's say, who have done a postgraduate work permit eligible program from New Brunswick, right? So now, what is the requirement? So they have said that first you must have completed a study that is eligible for postgraduate work permit, and you have a full-time permanent job, or have you accepted a full-time job offer in a non-seasonal position, right? Okay, so I think I might be not using the words correctly, but they basically did not say permanent, but they're saying non-seasonal position, right? So it's important to, maybe there's a distinction between that, because they're saying you're working full-time in a non-seasonal position, right? So that is how it is. But I think the permanent would make, elevate all of those issues anyways. Okay, so then you must have an education level that meets the requirements of your position, right? So this is important, right? Just having some kind of a 1-year diploma or something like that would not be sufficient. You still have to meet the education requirements for the job offer you are getting, right? So you must have been living in New Brunswick with a valid temporary residence for at least 6 months. You have intention to live and work in New Brunswick permanently and 19 years of age. And if your kind of job offer, right, or your job where you're working is in, let's say, tier 0, 1, 2, 3, you don't even have to basically take any language exam. But if it is not, then you have to have at least CLB 4 in all the 4 skills, right? So that's how they have basically given the exception. Again, if you're enrolled in full-time candidates, so these are all the same, which we have already discussed, so we'll not belabor this whole, go over this again. Let's look at the eligibility requirements. So first, they have mentioned that you need to provide all of this. So official certificate, diploma, degree, transcript, your student ID, must have completed a program study that is eligible for postgraduate work permit at a DLI located in New Brunswick, and your education level must meet the requirements of your position in New Brunswick. Okay. And the NOC system used to assess whether you have the required education. So that's how. So everything they have put into the NOC. For example, let's take an example. Let's say somebody wants to have an early childhood educator, right? So if you see here, there is definitely a requirement for that. So that you must have done a 2 or 4 year program in early childhood education, and it's required. But what if the person wants to work as an early childhood assistant? Then they need high school that is required, right? So it depends upon what is the exact requirement, right? Okay, so they must be working full-time in a non-seasonal position for an eligible New Brunswick employer, or have accepted an offer for such a job, right? And then again, these 2 documents, I think they're pretty much clear, so I wouldn't go all of them. So all the wage requirements has to be met according to Job Bank. And language skills are only required if the job offer is in tier 4 or tier 5. If it's a 0, 1, 2, 3, then it's not required. And residency has to be 6 months before applying in New Brunswick. And there are many ways you can prove that according to your driver license. And we have discussed that. Utility bills, pay stubs, and child tax benefit. Intention to reside economic establishment in New Brunswick, age. And they have also mentioned special consideration for MAHE, UNB, dual degree in nursing. They're saying if somebody has a dual degree in nursing from this specific kind of a degree, and then you have accepted a job offer for a registered nurse position, which is 31301, you're exempt from the residency requirement. So you don't have to be living in New Brunswick for the 6 months, right? So that's what I think what they mean. And you must provide a copy of your valid registration permit from the Nurses Association of New Brunswick with your application. Okay, so yeah, so I think the rest of the things are pretty much similar, and you can always go through this and see for yourself. And then let's look into the last one. I think this one actually doesn't even make sense for most of the people, because this specifically, they've already mentioned that this requires a job offer from as a direct result of recruitment mission led by New Brunswick. So I don't think so there's any way in a way you can kind of do this thing, unless there is a recruitment mission and you are able to participate and get a job offer there. So otherwise, I don't think so this actually makes a lot of sense in general. So when is this pathway right for you? If you have accepted a full-time non-seasonal job offer from a eligible New Brunswick employer in one of the priority occupations. So now this is very important. So this priority knock codes. So we will look into that. So the priority sectors in New Brunswick right now is healthcare, education, and construction, right? And you must have at least 1 year of paid work experience related to the job offer, so which was not the case for other ones. And you have an education level that meets the requirements, CLB4, age 19, and intention to live, right? So now quickly, let's look into what are those, this priority sector is, right? So very important to understand is this is government-led recruitment and priority knock code. So what it specifically mentions is that this job must have been offered to you as a direct result of a recruitment mission led by the government of New Brunswick, and it must be classified under one of the following. So you have healthcare, couple of occupations here, even tier 4, and then you have education, right? So education, they've pretty much taken everyone. So early childhood educators, social and community service, and many of those, and construction trades, there are a couple of them, right? Even like material handlers and tier 5s is there, so which is pretty good. And again, the comparable wage rate from job bank. And the important thing is that you also need to have 1 year of paid work experience in the last 5 years in Canada or abroad, right? And the important thing is that your experience must be related to your the position or the same knock code, right? So these are some of the requirements. So again, the education requirement is exactly the same, which has been previously, that you should have the education requirement, which is according to the job offer you have got in a way. And the language level is CLB4, right? So it could be English or French, it does not matter. And I think that pretty much all the other things are exactly the same. So I hope you like this video, and if it was any useful to you, please do like and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so that you're notified anytime I create a new video. And I wish you all the best. If you need any other program I should cover, do let me know, and any kind of analysis you want me to do, I'm open to ideas, and I'm happy to do a video as well on that. And thank you so much for watching.